10 common fish keeping mistakes that you want to try and avoid. So the first mistake, which is people will buy small fish, but then they'll grow too big for their tank. So you always need to do your research when buying your aquarium fish, especially if it's your first time, because sometimes you can get small Oscars for like a 20-gallon tank. In the future, they're going to get that big. When buying fish, you always have to do research about that specific fish, and then if they're suitable for your tank, then you can get them. If your fish does get too big though, you don't know what to do, then you can just take them to a fish store. They should take it, or if they don't, then you can take it to a friend, or you can even sell them off the internet through Gumtree or eBay, or you can get another tank for them. Now here's another beginner mistake, is buying expensive fish to start off with. You never buy expensive fish when starting out in the aquarium hobby. You know why? Because if your fish die the next day, you probably spent an insane amount of money and it's all gone and you can't return it. Most of the time you won't be able to return it, so it'll either be your choice. Beginners always make mistakes, and I'm telling you, you can't get out of them. You can never be the perfect fish keeper. You always have to make a few mistakes to actually become a great fish keeper. And all the really good fish keepers out there who are really experienced have experienced so many mistakes. So when you're starting out, it's always good to get some nice, cheap, colorful ones such as platies, mollies, guppies, tetras. Getting the really expensive ones like arowanas or like expensive cichlids or anything, or even discus, do not start off with those fish. Always start off with the cheap ones, because if you accidentally kill them, then that's a waste of money. But now this next one isn't too important. It's one that I don't really mind too much. Overfeeding. When I feed my fish, I just give them a normal amount, just amount that they will be able to consume in a few minutes. So what I mean by overfeeding is if you feed them like a handful of flakes and you just put them in, or if you're feeding them all throughout the day because they're looking at you all hungry. Fish are always going to look hungry. I guarantee you that. Even though you might have fed them a lot this morning, you fed them so much, they're going to ask for more. They're never going to stop asking for food. So make sure if you have other family members that you tell them about this, and tell them that they were going to beg all day, but you just ignore it. Well, you don't have to ignore it, but you can look at them and see them all cute, but you just don't feed them. Feed them at a specific time of day and feed them a certain amount. What I like to do is, once I see a fish eating, I only let it eat for about 3 minutes, and then if it's still eating, I'd net out some of the flakes. You don't count the 3 minutes when you put in the food, because some fish don't get to it in that amount of time. They won't be able to get that food. So you count when the fish is eating. Here's a really big mistake you don't want to make. It is over cleaning. I mean, how can you over clean? You want things to be nice and clean, you just scrub it all off, scrub all that algae off. Well, that's actually the opposite. What you want to do is, if you're getting a little bit of an algae bloom in your tank, you're not going to scrub everything down to bare bottom. No. If you don't know, beneficial bacteria lives on objects. And the beneficial bacteria is a good bacteria that will keep the tank from killing fish. It'll keep the ammonia stable and the nitrates stable and the nitrites. Without the beneficial bacteria, your fish will die really quickly from either getting burnt gills or suffocating. So you need to make sure that when you're cleaning a tank, you only just give it a tiny scrub, but always leave a bit of that algae on. It'll still be that beneficial bacteria. Whereas if you scrub everything down to the bottom, there's going to be no beneficial bacteria left in the tank, which means you'll have to start from scratch in the nitrogen cycle, and your fish will die pretty quickly. You don't want that to happen, right? You want to be the perfect fish keeper. Then just clean the water and the gravel, or if you have plastic plants, then you can just give that a little scrubby dub dub. But other than that, I reckon to leave the rest of the tank alone. Now this is another cleaning mistake, is using soap or any liquid detergent or stuff like that you use for your own dishes. Sorry, but that will kill the fish. There's some really bad chemicals in those products. They're not natural at all. Some might be, but they're still really harmful for the fish. If you get a bit of soap in that water, then it's really going to get that fish sick and possibly kill them. You don't want that to happen as well. So it's a really important thing, because man, if you wash everything with soap and you don't rinse it off afterwards, you're fried, and your fish are fried too. Just ensure that you're always rinsing your objects off with water really well if you do use any soaps or detergents. Now this next one is a video I made all about on how to actually do this, but instant cycle. Now it's kind of a myth, but I just want to share it with you today because it's a mistake fish keepers do that can go down really badly. Is instant cycling an aquarium. This myth is basically where you take water from an old tank, put it in your new tank, and boom, it's cycled just like that. Well, first of all, beneficial bacteria does not live in water. Oh, it does live in water, but not amongst water. It will survive on objects such as ornaments, plants, filters, other electrical equipment, gravel, any objects in the aquarium it will live amongst, even the glass, but not the water. And if you think it's going to be in the water when you put it into your new tank, then there's not going to be any of that bacteria at all. And it's just going to be a waste of time. And then after that, people usually add their fish straight away, which is a huge mistake. They're going to die quickly. And don't have a cycled tank. If you don't have an old tank, then you just have to wait at least a month, no matter how big your tank is. A month will make sure it's really good, but also check up with your pet store about the filter you're using and to make sure and ask them how long you'll have to roughly wait for the nitrogen cycle to take place with that filter you're currently using. Other than that, putting water from an old tank into a new tank ain't gonna do anything good for you or your fish. You basically buy all the fish you're gonna put in there immediately. For example, eventually get 5 goldfish for your tank, which is a mistake I did. And then I just decided when I was going to get my first few goldfish, I decided, hey, I'm just going to get a bunch. I mean, come on, it's not going to do much at all. I added 5 really expensive goldfish straight away. You know what happened? Next day, 4 of them were dead. One of them is still alive to this moment though, which is Chub. But this happened approximately a year ago. It didn't turn out well, and I was really sad when it happened. Stocking up your fish tank straight away is not going to do any good because your filter, it needs to get used to having to clean up the fish poop to control the nitrates. Gradually add fish to that tank. But if you add them all at once, then the filter's not going to be handling the huge amount of impact of waste. This next one is not keeping up with your water changes. If you want to be consistent with your water changes, it's really important, and your fish need that fresh water. What I like to call is when you put fresh water into a tank, like when you do a water change, that's basically fresh air for them. They get that fresh air, rush of fresh air, and they'll be able to breathe properly once again. So I recommend doing at least a 50% water change once a week. Some people do 75% water changes, and to be honest, it can really stress out your fish, and thing you need to avoid. But keeping up with your water changes, having a schedule, an alarm will work out really well, and you'll be a really good fish keeper. It's when you clean a filter, most people will squeeze all the sponge all the way, and so when you clean a filter, the beneficial bacteria, that's the main area for that bacteria to live in. It's where it gets to feed on all the waste and control the nitrates. So it's a really important thing, and if you overclean your filter, you get all that good bacteria out, then you're going to have to start from scratch in the nitrogen cycle, and your fish will die from ammonia spikes or nitrite spikes. Now I made a whole video about this, and I'll leave the link above, but putting fish in bowls or tanks smaller than 5 gallons. People put goldfish in bowls and they put all that colorful gravel and stuff. Fish love room to swim around no matter what type of fish they are. And most people will put goldfish in those bowls, and it's just really bad. An actual fact about bowls is that too much light will come into the bowl because it's concave, and it will create a lot of light, but not enough oxygen, because when it curves up like that, it restricts the hole in the bowl, the oxygen where it comes to the surface, and it's really important to not allow much space for any filters or aerators. Sometimes they do if you get a really big bowl. I don't mind the really big ones with a nice heavily planted aquarium. That's a really good little design there that will keep small ember tetras or something like that nice and happy. But if putting goldfish in bowls, they can't even be in tanks no matter how big. They should be in ponds, let alone bowls. Well, if you want to learn more about 3 common diseases, if your fish have them and you want to treat them, click the video there. But if you also want to know why fish bowls are bad for your fish, then I'll leave the video here as well. You can go check them both out, and I'm sure you'll love them. I'll also leave the links in the description. Have an amazing day. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.